One. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is season 2, episode 24 of the Yellow Card Podcast. You guys might be wondering, what is the Yellow Card Podcast? Because you haven't heard from us in about 2 weeks or so. It is our sincerest apologies. We let our schedule, life, and everything else in between come and get in between our timing for recording and giving you guys a show. But we're back. We're back here. We're back to end the Premier League season with a grand finale, as there is still a lot on the table for a lot of the teams. We know 3 teams right now completely safe in the Premier League. Obviously, that's Premier League champions of 2023 season, Manchester City. Arsenal obviously secure a spot to the Champions League. Congratulations to Arsenal. Big step up towards coming back to being the Arsenal team that everybody knew from many, many years ago. And Newcastle making history, coming back to the Champions League after 40-some odd years. I believe it's 47 years to be exact. Coming back to the Champions League, that is absolutely exciting. In fact, last time that Newcastle was on the Champions League, Alan Shearer was on the starting 11 for Newcastle. So that is extremely,
he was their captain.
It's extremely exciting. It's extremely cool to see history happening in the Premier League. And honestly, huge shout out to Eddie Howe. What an amazing project that he took on head on and just made the best of it. Made an absolute team that is a force to be reckoned with. But with that said, as always, your host, Diego Galvez, accompanied by your co-host, Chris Jones. This episode tonight is brought to you in partnership with Student Union Sports. Make sure that you're checking out all of their content daily. No subscription needed. StudentUnionSports.com. Sure to check them out. Support college students coming into the journalism world. And again, it's for free. All we need is your support. So once again, shout out to Student Union Sports, our sponsors for the night. Let's get the show started.
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
What year did you say that Newcastle was? First time since when?
I think it's been like 47, 45 years or so.
03, 04. Alan Shearer's
03.
not that old. The second I heard Alan Shearer, I was like, there's no way that was 47 years ago.
I read some stats saying it was like 40-something years ago, but
it might have been
was wrong.
It might have been the highest amount of points that they've scored in 47 years. Total?
Probably something like that. Okay, that's starting to make a little bit more sense. But anyways, I mean that's huge history for Newcastle. That's extremely exciting. A lot of potential coming up for Newcastle, and the more money that the new ownership dips into Newcastle, the more that you will see Newcastle be extremely, extremely relevant in the next few years to be. But with that said, let's start the show. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently this for episode 24. Usually, we dive down immediately into predictions. We dive down into the tournaments happening and whatnot. But with Champions League, Europa League, and the FA Cup final taking place next week, we decided to do things a little bit differently for the final week of the Premier League as it's coming to fruition. Tomorrow, we have a match between Manchester United and Chelsea that will define Manchester United's future in Europe. Will they be going Champions League? Will they be going back to the Europa League? Who knows? But a lot is on the table right now for Manchester United. But before we dive down into the Premier League predictions, we want to talk about some of the major important aspects of this season. Number one, managers this season. We went over 12 different management sackings this year, ranking from as far as high up as Antonio Conte leaving Tottenham Hotspurs, as well as Thomas Tuchel leaving Chelsea, to as far as low as just recently announced that Ruben Sellers will no longer be the Southampton head coach for the foreseeable future. Now it's going to be what's his name, Russell Martin, who's going to be taking care of the job now for Southampton, trying to bring them back to the Premiership. Obviously, they'll be relegated this year. So let's talk about managers. Do you want to start with best? Do you want to start with worst? What do you want to start with, Mr. Jones?
Um,
But before we do that, just a huge cheers to the two of us for this dealing with this tumultuous season that it was. Predictions wise, lineup wise, injury wise, management wise, everything else. So cheers to Bud Light making a wise decision here. Cheers to you all. Let's kick it away.
yeah, let's do that. I mean, hey, it's been a great run this year. I think we've seen a lot more interesting pieces throughout the year, and at points in time we were very solidified that we thought Arsenal would win, and then Manchester City having the great finale that they did towards the end of the season put them in a direction to succeed. That's all that we've seen so far. So shout out to them for winning third straight, four out of the last 5. But I don't know, for managers, do you want to start with you want to do like a manager of the year that we're given, like for us? You want to do that? All right. Do you want to start? You want to kick us off? Or you want me to go first?
I can kick us off. For me, it was really hard to pick a manager of the year out of these 5 managers that I'm going to mention. But my choice was clear after looking at everything that happened this year in the Premier League and everything that this club went through, everything that this club is still going through, and how much future this club has to offer. So my top 5 picks for manager of the year were Erik ten Hag, Roberto De Zerbi from Brighton, Unai Emery from Aston Villa, Eddie Howe from Newcastle, and Mikel Arteta from Arsenal. However, Arteta has been, the way that I decided to do this process of elimination was very simple. It was experience and strategy behind their club. Arteta has been in the Premier League for a number of years now. Yes, they have a strategy developed. However, when it came to closing the deal, they kind of fumbled the bag a little bit. Their performance dove down significantly, hence why Manchester City was able to catch up to them. They knew that pressure was on. They did not respond to the pressure. And that, to me, comes down to 2 things. Number 1, your talent, not having the right mentality. But number 2, your management not pushing for the right amount of performance out of your players. So therefore, Arteta kind of immediately drew out of the picture. Eddie Howe has also been very experienced in the Premier League. Yes, I think that this project with Newcastle was fantastic. It's very achievable what he's doing. I just think that for me to call him immediately manager of the year for the Premier League, it's a little unfair to some of the other options that were there. Unai Emery has also had a lot of experience in the Premier League. He was Arsenal's previous manager as well. He's a heavily experienced coach all around worldwide. So therefore, kind of expected a good response out of Unai Emery as soon as he took over from Aston Villa. They're expected to be 7th place in the Premier League. Probably not. I expected them to probably be, lower 10, maybe as high as 9, maybe. But not 7th. And they deliver a great amount of response here since Unai Emery took over for them after Steve Gerrard kind of fumbled the bag there. Then it came down to the 2 newbies in the Premier League. Erik ten Hag and Roberto De Zerbi. For me, Ten Hag has had enough experience dealing with the locker room that he has. Players like Lisandro Martinez, Anthony, Terrell Malaysia, several of those players, he's had that personality to be able to deal with them. He's got a strong character to be able to bring the discipline that Manchester United needed. Now it's about taking on to the next season and forming a strategy big enough so that Manchester United can finally be back to the levels that everybody knows Manchester United to be. They should be winning championships. Yes, did they win the Carabao Cup? Yes, they did. But it wasn't without a very strong battle from the other manager that's still on my pendulum swing as the manager of the year. in terms of history, Erik ten Hag didn't really make much history, except obviously having the most wins out of a new coach for Manchester United thus far, which is great. But it's not like Manchester United won the Premiership, and it's not like Manchester United was toe-to-toe with Arsenal and Manchester City throughout the whole season. Were they toe-to-toe with those guys at a period of time? Yeah, of course they were. But with the lineup that they have, with the talent that they have and all that stuff, they just didn't capitalize. Unfortunately, injuries were part of the game. And therefore, our bench just doesn't offer as much of a strong option to say that Erik ten Hag would be the manager of the year. So for me, manager of the year, without a doubt, is Roberto De Zerbi. He's won the respect of several managers in the Premier League, not just the Premier League, as well as around the world. Carlo Ancelotti has spoken heavily about him. He's made him out to be a very strategical coach, very new age kind of coach, and he's doing extremely well. Pep Guardiola has mentioned from time to time and several different times how much of a high regard he has towards Roberto De Zerbi. In fact, today, Manchester City were unable to beat Brighton today. They tied up 1-1. So with, in fact, with the amount of history that Roberto De Zerbi just created for Brighton and the amount of youth, talent, prospect, and future that Brighton has after the Graham Potter departure, I'm extremely happy for Roberto De Zerbi, and I think he's the manager of the year for me.
Listen, I don't disagree with you 100% here. I think just even looking at where we had them at the beginning of the season, I had Brighton finished in 13th. You had them finishing 15th. For them to get all the way up to 6th, they're playing European football next year. It's absolutely crazy to see.
And I believe it's for their first time, right? The first time in club history.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So again, history. So
exactly. So with that, I mean, when you look at it, it's just Now, do I think Unai Emery was going to be this good, this quick with this Aston Villa team that was constructed? No. I thought it would take him the summer, and I thought that they would get closer back to where they were, where I thought they would be originally in the season. I had them finishing 9th. You had them at 12. So around that range, I thought anywhere between the 9 and 12, I thought that Unai Emery could get this team to. But they just played well. They're tough, gritty defensive team. Like you said, I think it should be De Zerbi out of Brighton. Eddie Howe, I mean, should get consideration. Unai Emery should get consideration. But I think realistically, where Brighton is currently right now, they would not be without De Zerbi taking over the helm here.
No. And I mean, a lot of the Seagulls fans were very devastated as soon as they saw Graham Potter leave their club. Do I think that Graham Potter could have done better with Brighton? Absolutely not. Not at all. Graham Potter has had several seasons to be able to deliver what Roberto De Zerbi delivered this season with a club that a lot of those players, people were heavily overlooking. And now a lot of people are looking at Brighton as saying, okay, like clearly they got a good farm system. Like Brighton players that are being eyed right now by top tier teams in the Premier League: Moises Caicedo, Alexis McAllister, Mitoma is another one that's being eyed. There's a couple others that just aren't coming to mind right now, but just to name a few, when in the past 5 seasons have anybody eyed Brighton as hey, let's kind of talk some trade with them because they got some really good talent brought. So
no, they necessarily haven't. So it was good to see. So we had that was on the list. I think another thing that was on the list for this week was
well, I mean, we just talked about great managers and great clubs doing great things this year. Let's talk about the teams that we kind of expected a little bit better out of them, but unfortunately they are relegated this year. So let's talk about the relegation race, because while it is somewhat close, it isn't. It almost seems like it's a close book. Let's start with you.
So officially, Southampton is getting relegated. There's no way for them to catch up. I had them finishing 18th at the beginning of the season, so I expected them to be relegated. You had them at 17, which was one off, give or take. But looking at what the teams that we thought were going to get relegated compared to the teams that are getting relegated currently are shocking to say the least, to be honest with you. I think I let you persuade me into thinking that Leicester City was going to be much better than they were this season.
Mm-hmm.
So I will take that on the chin 100%. It just Leeds United, man. It stinks to see because, you know, you and I have high hopes for them. We like the energy when Bielsa was the manager of this team, and then they went in a different direction, and this Leeds team has suffered since. So it stinks to see. So going into this weekend, the big matchups for that, Everton's facing AFC Bournemouth. Leeds has Tottenham at home. Leicester is West Ham at home. Both of those potential winnable games for Leeds and Leicester, the way that Tottenham's been playing. But if Everton takes care of business, if Everton can get a win at home against AFC Bournemouth, they clinch, they're perfectly fine. It is down to those three teams for one spot.
Yep.
But I think there's a real possibility here that if Everton draws, Leicester could win and Leicester could sneak up and stay in the Prem. Based off the goal differential, Leicester has 6 fewer goals in the goal differential, so that helps them big time there. Everton desperately needs this win in order to stay afloat in the Prem and get back to the Prem next year, which I want to see. I think Sean Dyche deserves a realistic chance of being a Prem manager with this squad. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But no, this weekend for sure. When we go over our predictions for this weekend, those are 3 games on the calendar that are circled. Because necessarily, based on how Manchester United does tomorrow, so the day after we record against Chelsea, the top 4 could already be solidified. So those three are the important games to watch on Sunday.
Yep. No, I agree. Listen, when we looked at it at the beginning of the season, we both thought Leeds and Leicester. We weren't expecting Marcelo Bielsa to be sacked. We weren't expecting that to happen. It was a rough start for Leeds. It didn't get any better for them after Jesse Marsch took over for them, and it wasn't that much of a great difference. Then now Javi Garcia is there, and nothing all that great is happening either for Leeds. So, we expected high stuff out of Leeds. Unfortunately, nothing happened there. Now Sam Allardyce has taken over the locker room for Leeds. I just don't know if he's the manager to actually impulse them back to the Premiership. I think you need, somebody like a Ruud van Nistelrooy, who just recently left PSV. That could be a great fit over there for Leeds. Ruben Salas could also be a great fit for Leeds as well. Could be a different system that he could thrive on. There's several others that could be a great fit for Leeds. We just weren't expecting it. For Leicester City, I mean, extremely talented roster when you look up and down from it. I think the biggest problem for Leicester was losing their goalkeeper. Not having Schmeichel in the back of the net to give them that confidence that there's somebody reliable in the back end for Leicester in such a competitive environment as this was this year, kind of had a domino effect for the rest of the squad. Yuri Tielemans wasn't playing with the same level of confidence as he's known to play. Jamie Vardy barely even was there this season. I didn't hear much about him this season. You look up and down this whole roster. James Maddison was there, but really not there. He had a few weeks where he was thriving, and then it just dive off. Um, and as soon as the departure of Brendan Rodgers was announced, it wasn't like it got any better after that, because then Dean Smith took over, but it's not like results actually came in, and now they're definitely in the relegation zone. If they don't win, then they're done. There's nothing that they can do. They can't afford a draw. They can't afford a loss. They have to win. Same boat as Leeds. They have to win. So frankly, honest with you, basically, like you said, Leicester and Leeds, huge surprises this year. Very underperforming. Very under managed. So to see them relegating, very devastating, considering that Leicester has had a very good run in the Premier League. But for Leeds, this is just in their history, man. The past few years, it's been like that. 1 or 2 years in the Prem, and then it just dives off. So some consistency needs to happen there. Some farm system needs to be developed for sure. And we have mentioned this midpoint of the season, by the way. I want to say that we have mentioned this midpoint of the season. They need somebody that can develop their farm almost as good as somebody like for the Red Bulls organization did, like Salzburg and Leipzig. So when I thought of new coaches that could step up to take care of Leeds from there on, I had mentioned that what's his name? Ralph Rangnick could take over. That might be the direction that they need to look at right now, because if they want a future in the Premiership to be sustainable and at least be able to last 4 to 5 years, you need somebody with that mentality to be able to develop a good farm system of young, talented players that will last and that will be fit to compete in this heavily competitive environment that we have right now in the Premier League.
I agree. To go back on the Leicester thing, and Jamie Vardy no showing this entire season. For the first time since the year before they won the Prem, Jamie Vardy has been under 13 goals in the season. He actually had 3 total goals this season to go along with 4 assists. It's not the Jamie Vardy that we're used to and accustomed to seeing. So for that aspect, that's a big reason why Leeds is where they are currently.
I agree. So we talked about managers. We talked about the relegation zone. Every year, however, in the Premier League, we see at least 10 major exits, whether it's a manager or whether it's a player. This year, we're going to focus on players and players only, because we could probably see a huge shuffleboard of managers happening throughout the Premier League. So let's talk about players that we expect to leave. The top 10 players that we expect to leave their respective clubs. We're not going to say where they could go. We're just going to say that could potentially walk away from their contracts and put themselves available as agents in the market. So I don't know if you want to start. If you want me to start, let me know.
I'll start here. You want to go one apiece?
Yeah, let's do it. That's fine.
All right. I think the first one, if we want to start low or go high, do we want to start high and work our way down? How do we want to do this?
Doesn't matter.
All right. So the first one, we talked about it. His team's struggling. He's going to want out, especially because there's a chance that they could get relegated. I'm going to go Yuri Tielemans, 26 years old. His contract's about to be up with Leicester anyways. He desperately needs a new change of scenery, and there are teams around the Prem that could use a guy like that, or potentially even teams all around Europe that could use a guy like that. Yuri Tielemans is definitely on the move from Leicester City this season.
I agree. I also had him on my list of top 10 exits this year. Fully agree with that. Yuri Tielemans could. I don't expect him to stay in the Premier League. I just think his football and his stamina have kind of died down a little bit. So I expect him to go somewhere like maybe the Dutch league, maybe the Italian league, or maybe even the French league. But I don't expect him to go somewhere where he's going to be required to have a huge level of physicality available, like he would be needing in the Premier League, La Liga, or maybe the German league. So therefore, I expect, I would say that the perfect target for Yuri Tielemans would be something like Roma, Lazio, maybe even PSV would be a great bet for for Tillsman.
Let's go
My
to
s-
another name from you.
yeah, so my second name that I expect immediately to leave their club this year is none other than Aymeric Laporte. He at the end of this year's season, when they were lifting the trophy, the cameras caught an angle of him just kind of soaking in the crowd, having a little bit of an emotional moment there for himself. With Manchester City continuing to develop as much as they're developing right now, and potentially looking to spend a little bit more money next year to continue onto their path to win more Champions League football and trophies. Where will he go? Not entirely sure. I think there's a lot of options for Laporte. I think he could go Bayern Munich, he could go Barcelona, he could go Real Madrid. He could even stay in the Prem, could go somewhere like Manchester United, who could heavily use him. I highly doubt that will happen, but it's interest kinks there are there, and Manchester United will be there. That's for sure. So I expect Emery Laporte to be on the outs.
To counter, what would be probably the best fit for Aymeric Laporte?
By Liverpool.
I'm thinking out of the Prem. I'm thinking not even in La Liga. I'm thinking PSG. That's where I'm thinking for Aymeric Laporte when he leaves. All right. So another name that I'm going to say, Diego, and I think you'll actually like this one, 100%. I think that Mason Mount will finally leave Chelsea this summer. Where does
I have
he
him
go?
on my list as well. Yeah.
Where does he go? I mean, obviously the rumors that United are very, very much so they're involved, but I think there's a real chance that he ends up in London, but playing for the Gunners in Arsenal this upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mason Mount is definitely on the outs. After a good season under Frank Lampard, under a somewhat decent season under Thomas Tuchel, and then there are a horrifying roller coaster there between Graham Potter and Frank Lampard again this season. It's just been bad. So I agree. Mason Mount is definitely on the outs. I agree. United's definitely a target for him. I could potentially picture Liverpool as well, especially now that we know
They'll be
that,
in the mix.
Yeah, they'll definitely be in the mix. I don't expect Liverpool to lash out the cash that they want, especially now that they just sold out James Milner to Brighton. However, it could be a suitable replacement. He's a lot younger, plays almost the same position, maybe a little bit tougher. So maybe something the club might be interested, but I don't expect them to shell out the 80 million tag that Chelsea's looking to get right now.
No shot. If they won't spend close to 100 on Jude Bellingham, they won't spend 80 on Mason Mount.
No, I mean the whole Jude Bellingham deal is just ridiculous. How much money they're going to be giving him, but that's neither here or there. So let's continue with our list. Another name that I expect to leave this year as well from their respective club is we spoke about him earlier and underperforming, and I think he's going to want to give himself finally the value that he deserves. And I think it's Jamie Vardy. I think his time at Leicester has come to an end. He's not going to want to stay in the championship to just play and bring their team back. I mean, he's had a long history at this club. He did a lot for this club, but I think in the eyes of European football and in the eyes of developing your career, this might be the most perfect timing for him to make a move. I think there's several clubs all throughout the world that will be eager to sign him. PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Leverkusen, Bayern Munich, Roma, AC Milan, Inter, Lazio, Napoli, any of those teams that I just rattled right off the bat could very well be interested in Jamie Vardy, and I think he would be making a good choice to re-elevate his career and leaving Leicester City and developing himself. So that's who I see leaving this year as well.
Yep, I like that name as well. Like I said, He's getting up there in age as well. 3 goals this season. It was like it was like he was a shell of himself. New senior might do well for him. Another name I have on this list. This guy was well talked about last year in the summer transfer window. I think after this year and how this team underperformed, I think that this guy isn't going to want to waste his prime there. I think a guy like Declan Rice is going to be on the move this summer.
I have him as well. Yep.
Declan Rice to any of the top 6, in my opinion. I think the traditional fit, I think the thing is, if Casemiro wasn't so good right now, I would say Manchester United would be up at the top. But
well, your horse is there because there are rumors that Casemiro could be leaving Manchester United after this season.
Okay. So but however, I think that Declan Rice and Mason Mount reunite at Arsenal together. I think they're both very friendly with one another. Yep. I could see Arsenal throwing the bag at those two to help that midfield out in a big way. So
they have the funds and they can do it.
Declan Rice is officially leaving West Ham this year.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. I think the problem that I have with his name being tied to a top 6 team is that we've seen this happen already, and I'm afraid of how it will last for his name, because last year, one of the big names that everybody wanted to dive in for was Calvin Phillips from Leeds. Everyone was like, he should go to United. No, he should go to City. No, he should go to Liverpool. No, he should go to Arsenal. No, he should go to Tottenham. He went to City, but he hasn't been a name that City has been like, okay, like we depend on him, or like, okay, like he can do his stuff there. Granted, he's been bombarded by injuries, but that also tells you about his fitness. It's just not there. I kind of worry about the same exact thing happening to Declan Rice, especially coming from a club like West Ham United, who's had a very up and down, wishy-washy kind of couple years here. I worry about that for Declan Rice, but I agree with you. I think a top 6 team should definitely be on the bag for him. And if it's not in the Premier League, I would not be surprised if the Italian league comes knocking down for him, because right now the Italian league is the 2nd most competitive league in the world right now, in my opinion. I don't think La Liga is as competitive anymore. I think Barcelona has kind of taken the monarchy there now. Unless Real Madrid managed to finish the deal with Jude Bellingham and can finish a deal with Kylian Mbappe, that will put Real Madrid back in the picture. For now, though, I will say that the kings of Spain right now are Barcelona. So I wouldn't mind seeing Declan Rice go to the Italian league. I think it would be a good fit for him. I think he could be, he could be the next. What's the French's name that went to AC Milan? Why am I drawing a blank on him? The forward.
Giroud.
Yeah, there you go.
Oliver Giroud.
Yep, Olivier Giroud. He could be the next one over there. He could thrive over there. He could be the same as Tammy Abraham as well. He's been thriving under Mourinho. All right, so moving on. Another name that I picture leaving this season is none other than Edward Mendy. He's had a very, very rough season in Chelsea. Once he was trusted by Lampard, he did phenomenal in his first season, but once Tuchel came in between, it just, I don't know, the development just wasn't there. He did good under Tuchel for the first season, but it's just not there. I think he needs a new environment, an opportunity to relive himself. And I think that leaving Chelsea would be the best bet for him.
Yeah, no, he definitely is due for a clean slate as well. I think another name that is definitely due for a clean slate for me based off of what happened this year. I'm gonna actually go with N'Golo Kante is going to leave Chelsea this year. I think he's gonna end up at PSG in France. To me, he needs to get out of Chelsea. He super injured prone all year. He hasn't been himself. He got one bad knock and it ruined his whole season basically.
Mhm.
I think if he goes into Ligue 1, I think he can relax. He's gonna be 33 and just coast until he retires from football. So I think N'Golo Kante is leaving Chelsea.
I think that's a phenomenal take. I have nothing to add there. I would agree with you there. All right, moving on from Conte, I think another name that will also be leaving this season, is, and I expected it to happen, is none other than Harry Maguire. I think with Ten Hag looking to make several changes in the locker room to booster his options in the bench, which he didn't really have many options this year in the bench. This is a perfect opportunity to make the money that he needs to make in order to sign other players. With rumors of Manchester United looking to sign Napoli's defender Kim Min-jae and a couple other defenders, I think Maguire is completely out of the picture at this point. When you have somebody like Rafael Varane that can perform, somebody like Lisandro Martinez that can perform, Lindelof has been phenomenal and sensational. Ten Hag is a big fan of his. I think, unfortunately, Maguire is just out of the picture at this point.
Lindelof and sensational, something I never thought would come out of your mouth.
I honestly, I was not expecting that to come out either, but under Ten Hag, he's like revived himself. He's back to that physical, no bullshit type of guy that we saw when he first joined Manchester United under Mourinho.
Yep.
It's exciting to see. It's phenomenal to see. And to be frankly honest, Ten Hag kind of exposed the defenders that will not work for Manchester United this year in a very discreet and safe manner. He switched around the partnerships multiple times this season. He had Maguire and Varane. He had Maguire and Martinez. He had Lindelof and Varane, Lindelof and Martinez. And in multiple times when Maguire was in the field, mistakes were happening. Stupid goals were happening. How many own goals did Maguire not have this season? He had at least 5 in clutch games that also matter. So I think that for Maguire, and I think that for Manchester United's sake, I think it's time for him to move on and find his next opportunity somewhere else. I don't think Maguire will stay at United this year.
All right, the last one I have, and this is a name that might come as a surprise, but the rumblings about him wanting out after the season have been going on for a while.
I have 4 different names, but keep going.
Oh, Jesus. I'm going with Ilkay Gundogan.
Yep.
From Manchester City. I think he's definitely gone. I think him and Bernardo Silva are the 2 midfielders from Manchester City that are going to be gone this year. They're gonna retool. They have these young talented pieces that are coming up. Julian Alvarez has been very good for them all season long.
Incredibly reliable.
I just think City's going to go in a different direction, and Gundogan is going to go play in the German league, and Bernardo Silva is going to either go play for Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, something in the La Liga.
So you see Gundogan making a return to the German league because he came from Dortmund.
I see him going back to the German league. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I think whether or not he goes back to Dortmund, whether or not he goes to like Leverkusen, I don't think maybe Bayern Munich. I think one of those 3 teams. I think he ends up with. Because he's 32 now, I think.
I don't necessarily agree that the German league will be where he goes. I think the Spanish league, maybe even the Italian league, could be landing zones for him. But I don't think he stays in the Premier League, because if he wants to stay in the Premier League, he might as well just stay with Manchester City and know that he can at least run for a title. If he goes to Arsenal or Manchester United or Liverpool, I mean, he's chancing his opportunities there. Will he play the same way? Probably, maybe even better. Who knows? I just don't think he stays in the Premier League.
Yeah, I don't think he does either.
All right. Well, we know two names that are officially leaving, and I forgot that those announcements were already made. So those are Firmino and Granit Xhaka, who are leaving this year. But one other name that we haven't touched upon, he's been heavily rumored to be leaving his stance at this current club. It's none other than Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane is the next person to leave Tottenham Hotspurs. I think it's time for a change for him, for his career, for his development, for his value, for his net worth around the globe, for his value with the national team. I think it's time for a change of scenery for Harry Kane.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. I just not going to get my hopes up because I had the same hopes last year. But
I think last year was a different story though, because last year they expected for Antonio Conte to stay and to continue with this great project. They were not expecting that by signing somebody like Richarlison that the whole locker room was going to flop.
Correct. I agree. I agree with that take 100%. But we'll wait and see what happens. I won't be surprised if he leaves. I also won't be surprised if he stays.
True. All right. So we talked about relegation. We talked about managers. We talked about the top 10 exits. How about we talk about the best possible starting 11 for this year's Premier League season? We've talked about the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's talk about the people that highlighted this year's Premier League season. Where do you want to start off? Do you want to rattle off your lineup? Do you want me to rattle off my lineup?
I'll rattle off my lineup. I'll go quick.
All right.
Keep it quick.
And feel free to share the formation as well.
Yep. I was about to say 4-3-3 defensive midfielder. Goalkeeper, I'm going Nick Pope. I was high on him coming into the season. I said he was going to be one of the best transfers of this season, and I still think that he was. Because of him and the clean sheets, Newcastle's where they are today, back in Champions League football for the first time since 03-04. From left to right, left back, I'm going with Kieran Trippier. I'm moving him from the right to the left here because my right back obviously is Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's having a phenomenal season. The assists are up, and he is just playing very well defensively. And Trippier is also a key part of this Newcastle defense and needs to be compensated by it. The two center backs, I'm going with Ruben Diaz, obviously, from Manchester City. We know how good he is. He's talented, he's young, and he's been real good for this Man City team since he's come over. And honestly, I'm going to go with William Saliba as well from Arsenal as my other center back. You know, Arsenal being number 2 in the table, he's a big reason why defensively. You have to give him credit there. Okay. Actually, I fucked that up. I can't believe I did that to myself. All right. Center mids, I'm going obviously KDB. You know, he's just an absolute stud still at the age of 29. He's a big reason why Manchester City has won 4 out of the last 5, and he is one of the best center mids in all of the world. The other one I'm actually going to go with Arsenal. Going Arsenal here again. Martin Odegaard, again, very much so a big part of why Arsenal was where they were this year, influential. And although down the stretch it wasn't great, he had a great season overall, and I'll give him the credit there. Instead of defensive mid, I mentioned him already, talking about you guys. Casemiro has been a huge part of why Manchester United is very close to going back to the Champions League again next year. Without Casemiro, I don't think that the defensive side as a whole would have been as strong. So I think for David De Gea to have 21 clean sheets this year, he's going to give a big credit to Casemiro for keeping the pressure off of him. And then up front, left wing, I was going with Bukayo Saka earlier, but then again, I completely forgot of how much of a monster Marcus Rashford was all season long. So I'm going with Marcus Rashford as my left wing. Right wing, I'm going Mo Salah, consistent goal scorer, up almost in the 20s again this year. He's just still a beast on the wing for Liverpool. And then striker, I didn't believe in him at the beginning of the year. I thought he would struggle coming into this league, but he has been an absolute beast, and that's Erling Haaland. I mean, he is just the best striker in the world right now. No doubts about it. Just tremendous shape, and can just put the ball in the net whenever he feels like it. So that's my starting 11 for this year.
And who would you say would be your coach for that starting 11?
Ooh, that's a great question. My coach would be actually, for the way that this team is styled, I'm going Erik ten Hag.
All right. We'll put out both of these lineups on Twitter. You guys can vote and tell us which lineup you agree with the most. These are just our thoughts. We're not the decision maker of who will be the Premier League starting lineup officially. So if you are one of those people on Twitter that just want to be aggressively commentating, please just scroll through. Do not even stop to comment. We don't need negative comments at this point. But here's what I would say for my Premier League lineup. My coach for this lineup is none other than Pep Guardiola. I'm going with a 4-3-3 formation as well. Very contending formation. For me, my goalkeeper is none other than Ederson. He's been sensational for Manchester City. Kept them in the race and multiple times. This past 10 games where they really needed him to show up and show out, he's been heavily reliable. He is a closing factor for Manchester City. When you were looking at this Premier League season, you needed somebody to be a closing factor. Therefore, Ederson is my choice. For my defense, my center backs are none other than Tyrone Mings from Aston Villa. He's been sensational for Villa. He's been very physical. Won a lot of air matches as well. Very difficult to get past through, and been heavily reliable for Aston Villa. My second choice is none other than Lisandro Martinez. Everybody thought that he would struggle this season in the Premier League, especially because of his height and because of his sizing. Believe it or not, one of the toughest defenders there was in the Premier League this season. He made a lot of commentators and pundits eat their words, including somebody like Gallagher as well. Gallagher himself, he had to eat his words. So Tyrone Mings and Lisandro Martinez for my center backs. Left wing, I'm gonna go with Kyle Walker. He's been a showstopper in that wing for Manchester City. Yes, he's old. Yes, you can say whatever you want out of him, but there is nobody as physical as him right now in the Premier League for left wing. You can debate that Diogo Dalot, maybe Aaron Wan-Bissaka, maybe even Luke Shaw could be contenders, but I would disagree heavily. I think Kyle Walker is just a force to be reckoned with in that left wing. For my right wing is none other than Arsenal's Zinchenko. Zinchenko has been a phenomenal signing for Arsenal. He's been very reliable on that right wing for them. His youth has definitely come to play, and I think his speed, size, and tactics with the ball show out when needed. So therefore, that's my right winger. Center mids, I'm going with a combination of KDB and Bruno Fernandes. KDB has been sensational for Manchester City. Nothing to say there. Still incredibly young. Very personable, good leader in the center, especially when you need him. And same with Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes this year, I thought for sure was going to continue to struggle under Erik ten Hag, somebody with high demands and whatnot. But instead of somebody that struggled, he showed out to be a true leader for Manchester United, somebody that could absolutely wear the captain's band with pride and be a true captain of the team. He's accepted his mistakes. He's taken the coaching of other players that have been seasonal in the locker room. He's taken coaching of veterans like Casemiro and David De Gea as well. It just shows that his growth is completely there. For my center defensive mid piece, it's somebody that isn't being talked about as much as maybe he should be. But the impact that he had this year for this club and the impact that he's had this year for himself around the league has impulsed his value to making him one of the most sought after targets this year as soon as he becomes a free agent. And that's none other than Alex McAllister from Brighton. I'm going to choose him on my center defensive mid. For my right wing, I'm going with Joao Felix. I thought for sure he was going to be brutal, awful, terrible in the Premier League because I didn't think he had it in him to be competitive this year. But in fact, probably the best signing that Chelsea had this year out of 22, 24 different signings that Chelsea had this year after, I don't even know, $670 million.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Yeah, after 670 million pounds that they spent in signings, Joao Felix was the one that actually worked. I think he's been sensational this year. I think he's one of the many reasons why Chelsea isn't actually in the relegating zone. Probably one of the safe havens that Chelsea had this year. Graham Potter was heavy on him. Frank Lampard's been heavy on him. The league's been saying like he's sensational. He's worth looking after. And in fact, 3 teams that are currently looking at him after his loan spell is done are Manchester United, Arsenal, and there's one more Premier League team that I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on, but I just can't seem to think of. For my left wing, I agree with your assessment, Jones. I think Marcus Rashford has been absolutely outstanding this season. Physicality, growth, speed. When you need him, he's there. He's Mr. 24-hour show off for Manchester United. I think he would be a great partner for my forward pick, which is Erling Haaland as well.
I like it.
All right. So we've talked about best players. We talked about relegating teams. We talked about manager of the year, the top 10 X's that we expect. Let's close out the show with something that we know how to do here, which is predicting the last slate of the 2022-2023 season for the Premier League. Currently, our records, Jones is at 174, 195. I myself am at 188 to 181. Unless I go 0-12. Actually, at this point, I've managed to nail down my second year in a row where I win the Premier League, finally. But let's go with predictions. To start with tomorrow's match. Jones, if you want to run us down the schedule, let's get the predictions going.
Yeah, let's get started. First one, we have Manchester United and Chelsea for personal reasons and because the trophy is out of my control. I'm going to go with Chelsea 2-0.
Wow. Okay. I like it.
Selfish.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm actually going to go with the 2-1 United victory. I think that Chelsea will come in pretty hard to compete with, but it is at Old Trafford, and there's always that one element at Old Trafford that shows out, and that's Alejandro Garnacho, and I don't think Chelsea has what it takes to contain him.
We'll see. All right, Arsenal and Wolverhampton.
Arsenal and Wolverhampton. All right. I'm going 3-1 Arsenal. I think they need to end the season on a good note. This is the perfect way to end it.
I don't think they're going to care enough. I think they're just going to try and make sure that everybody's healthy. I'm actually going to go with a 1-1 draw.
I saw that cop out.
All right, Aston Villa and Brighton. I think Villa personally wants to end on a good note here. They're at home. Brighton solidified themselves in the top 6. I'm going Villa 2-0.
Yep. It's Brighton, man. They've been super competitive all season long. I don't think they're going to stop anytime soon. With Aston Villa and Brighton not really having much of a difference at this point, I'm actually going 1-1 draw.
Oh, cop out. Brentford and Manchester City. Don't forget, Brentford beat Manchester City earlier in the season. I see them doing it again. I don't think City puts up their good squads. I'm going Brentford 1-0.
I'm gonna go in a different route here. I'm gonna go as Manchester City, the Hardos. They've done this every single fucking year, and they'll continue to do that. Going 2-0 City.
Okay.
What was your score prediction? 1-0 Brentford.
Yep. All right. Chelsea and Newcastle.
All right. So with Newcastle really not needing much on the line, I think they're actually gonna be a pest to Chelsea. I'm gonna go with a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to go even more of a pass. I'm going 0-0.
I like it.
Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest.
I'm gonna go with Crystal Palace, and then the season a high note. Roy Hodgson has been good for that club again. We didn't think that they were gonna be any good. I'm going 1-0 Crystal Palace.
I think Nottingham Forest. So Nottingham Forest officially up again next year. I think they will take this as a learning curve. I'm gonna go with a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. Okay.
All right, Everton and AFC Bournemouth. I'll keep this short. I'll keep this sweet. Bournemouth beat them 3-0 earlier in the year. It's at Goodison Park. Give me Everton 1-0. I'm calling it. He saved them earlier. He's gonna save them again. Jerry Mina.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. I'm actually picking Everton to win as well. I'm going 2-1 in dramatic fashion. I think it's gonna be a 1-1 draw from the first half. And at the very last minute, it's gonna be the last minute drama that we need the Premier League to end with, going 2-1 Everton.
Yeah, for sure. Leeds and Tottenham here. Tottenham just not gonna care. I like Leeds in this one. I'm gonna go Leeds 2-0.
I think Tottenham does care, and I think for the quality of the team that they have and for the repertoire to end in a good note, I think they squeeze out a 1-0 win, but it's nothing out of this world.
Let's see. We have Leicester and West Ham. I'm gonna go with West Ham squeaking 3-2.
I'm going with West Ham as well. I'm going 2-1.
United and Fulham. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Fulham 2-0.
So you expect Manchester United to fumble the bag?
No. Here's the thing. I know you guys are gonna win against Chelsea tomorrow, but on the off chance that they do, I just want to be able to come on the podcast and say, "Look, I was right."
My God. I'm gonna go with a 1-0 victory for United. Last time that they played Fulham, they played them tough. Fulham is very tough to play against.
Didn't they beat them 3-0 last time they played? Actually,
yeah, but it was because of red cards.
3-1. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. No, you're right. Sorry.
Yep.
All right, and the last one, Southampton, Liverpool. Like, come on now, Liverpool's winning 3-0. Curtis Jones hat trick, baby.
It's funny you said that. I have 3-0 Liverpool as well.
Curtis Jones hat trick incoming. Let's go.
What makes it so funny that you just said that was that last year when we used to do the Twitch streams, you fucking hated the shit out of Curtis Jones, and now you're like salivating over the dude.
I'm not salivating, but
you just said Curtis Jones hat trick. That's salivating. That's like
no. This year for whatever reason he's not in the lineup every game, which is great. But for whatever reason, whenever he comes in the lineup, he something happens. So ride Curtis Jones.
God, I hate your takes sometimes. That's okay.
I hate my takes too.
All right. With that said, any final takes? Any last minute thoughts?
No, I mean, just looking ahead to schedule things coming up. FA Cup final coming up. Following week, we have the Euro qualifiers coming up in a couple weeks. Busy summer incoming. Might not look at it, but busy summer incoming.
Yep, very busy summer coming ahead. We got transfer window as well to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
We got signings to deal with. So continue to stay put with the Yellow Card Podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify. Just search Yellow Card Podcast Boston. We'll be right there. On YouTube, on Twitter, whatever else you use, on TikTok as well. But in the meantime, episode 24 of season 2 ends here tonight. Thank you all so much for showing love to us, for supporting us all this whole entire season. And may the odds be ever in your favor for your Premier League team.